We really started, Sam Hunt, who was a very well-known Greenville businessman, had read an article in the New York Times about food harvesting. Good leftover foods that were being thrown in the trash. New York had started a program. We were also in New York and donated to that program at a business conference my husband attended. And Sam came back to Greenville after reading that, and he said, we can do this in Greenville, South Carolina, if New York can.
Sam Hunt came to me and said that he had an idea. And he had an article from the New York Times, and it was about an organization called City Harvest in New York City, and of course it's a food rescue program. And he said, if they can do this in New York City, then I know we can do this in Greenville, South Carolina, and I would like for you to help.
And we went to some national meetings and conferences, and we visited Atlanta and saw what they had done with their food programs, and we thought we can be like those bigger places.
Sam Hunt called me one day laughing because there was a restaurant called Vince Perrone's in Greenville, and it was kind of a landmark legacy in Greenville, and Vince and his family were one of our first donors. And Sam called me laughing because he had been by the soup kitchen and they were serving caviar pie and pate, goose liver pate at the soup kitchen. So he thought it was, a little bit humorous, but there had been a wedding and Vince made sure that all the food was donated to Loaves Fishes.
So many people were interested in this. When you said it to somebody, they said, that's a great idea. So the volunteers were really pretty easy to find in the first stages. And without the volunteers, it wouldn't work. The volunteers are the key to the program.
Because it was strictly voluntarily, where there's no monetary values to it. It's something that has to come from you from the inside and let it work its way to the outside. It encourages me to get up on a new day and look forward to have something to do.
We also operate with 3 refrigerated trucks, and we have 2 full-time drivers who operate those, and we have 1 part-time driver who also helps pick up on the weekends.
But the first time I came back to Greenville and saw the truck, my heart just flipped. And David Klein gave the first truck to Loaves and Fishes. But first we had to convince people to give us that food. That was a little tough. And we assured everybody that there is a law called the Good Samaritan Law that covered them if the food was put away properly after it was. And that was a little hard sell, but once they got that, it was easy, and we had some great first donors.
I think one of the greatest things about food rescue is that it's so easy to donate. People think of it as a huge liability risk, where it really isn't. There are 2 laws that help ensure that liability is a non-issue. One is the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Law, and that is a federal law. And then South Carolina further covers people in South Carolina who are willing to donate with a statute as well.
It really is already part of any restaurant that would be responsible with food safety. You're really already doing all of those things. So it's really just a measure of being able to incorporate what we already do to control food safety, and the additional steps really aren't a whole lot. Putting it into the freezer at the end of the night versus throwing it into the garbage. It's really that simple.
Well, we donate food because it's the right thing to do, and it's certainly it's part of one of our core values in supporting our communities. And I can't imagine really not donating our food. It's there are people in need.
All the food that we're picking up from donors and all the food that we deliver to agencies, there's no fee for that service. It's just a direct service we feel like we get the food donated, and so we want to reciprocate that donation.
Our food cost is significantly lower because of all the donations that we get from Loaves Fishes. We write grants for other aspects of the organization. That's one thing we don't have to worry about. Without Loaves Fishes, the soup kitchen wouldn't be feasible. We wouldn't be able to get the food that we need, to pay for the food that we need to serve that meal each day.
We are working with some larger distributors of produce now. We're getting several thousands of pounds of produce every week, which is making an enormous impact.
When we had the dream of supplying our fresh vegetables, I wasn't sure how we were going to be able to do that because we couldn't go out and purchase the produce. And so we thought in the back of our minds that maybe we would connect with our gleaners in that community. And then, out of nowhere, I get a call from Bill to say, "Hey, Pat, listen, this is what we have going. Could you accept some fresh items?" And just out of nowhere, it was another one of God's blessings here at Triune.
There are cascading problems that occur from obesity. It's not just the situation where communities are unhealthy. We're seeing a very, very strong increase in obesity in children. And that in particular, I think, is an area in which we can continue to work together to create a better situation for our children, our elderly, and folks of all ages.
Food plays an integral part in the health of our community. Certainly those people who are forced to go to emergency food pantries or soup kitchens have a whole lot less opportunity to make choices in what they're eating. An initiative that we're working on right now is just getting more healthy options to be available at the emergency food pantries, at the soup kitchens.
I think what's particularly poignant right now about the situation with food waste is that in South Carolina alone, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of around 625,000 tons of food waste that's generated annually. And the work that Loaves Fishes has been doing addresses that particular problem directly.
If we look at the food hierarchy pyramid, the recovery pyramid, it clearly indicates source reduction starts at the top, and then of course give food to people who need it and let's feed them. And then let's look at composting and maybe some digesters, anaerobic digesters, those kinds of things to take the least left scrap on a plate down to nothing and maybe turn it into something biodegradable.
Redirecting food waste is something that is truly a way in which we can be more sustainable, and it's also a way in which we can address societal need while also being very innovative, creative, and pragmatic.
When we talk about collaboration, I think a lot of what we're talking about is where we'd like to see food recovery 25 years from now. And hopefully Loaves Fishes will be a big part of that discussion. We think it's really important that people are recovering food, certainly, for those who need it and need to eat it, most importantly, and fill their bellies. But we also believe that there is a strong need to remove some of the organic food waste that is going into our landfills.
So for sustainability to be in place, you need to take into account the economics, the environment, and the social justice or equity concerns. I think Loaves Fishes is doing all of that with the work that your organization has been pursuing over the last quarter century.
Anytime someone is talking about food or interested in food or has an interest in furthering the discussion on food insecurity, Loaves Fishes really wants to be a part of that conversation. We're so grateful and thankful for the pioneers, really, who started this idea. If Sam Hunt had never brought this up in the first place, there wouldn't be a Loaves Fishes. There wouldn't be a food rescue. We'd have so much more waste in our community.
As you see, 25 years later, it has grown, and it will keep on growing. Because we'll always have people that are less fortunate and are hungry among us.